It's Friday, and you know what that means. The Hudson Media Group probably brings to you the latest edition of Talking Politics. And yes, I am the generational talent in Garden State Media and your leader for trustworthy journalism, not just here in Hudson County, but throughout the state of New Jersey. That's right, folks. It's Fernando Uribe. Happy New Year to all of you. It's great to be back in the studio here in 2026. And certainly, folks, sticking over the holiday break, maybe I should be a little bit nicer to some of the locals that don't like me here in Hudson County or throughout New Jersey. But on second thought, let me double down for my dislike for all of the, soy boys and beta males and really the rest of the crowd that we all know was trying to get me canceled in 2025. Well, let me see if I can give them some material to try to do it again. But again, here, folks, I appreciate you tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so here on all of your social media platforms. If you haven't done so already, make sure you like the show on Facebook. Of course, follow the Hudson Media Group on Instagram and X. And of course, subscribe to their YouTube channel for all of our great programming. Of course, starting right here with Talking Politics. Folks, again, there's a lot to discuss. So let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Yes, folks, as we open up 2026, it's been a quite polarizing start of the year. And without question, obviously, on the minds of so many New Jerseyans and, of course, Americans throughout these United States, was the recent death of Renee Good, a Minneapolis mother who was tragically killed last week. Now, folks, two things can be true at the same time. First, her death is tragic. It's heartbreaking. It's absolutely gut-wrenching to know that her kids will not see their mother anymore, and certainly her spouse. Again, it's tragic. It's unfortunate, and it is certainly going to evoke a lot of emotion. But by the same token, folks, her death could have been completely avoidable. Now, before you get all menstrual and start menstruating on me, chill, and let me break this down for you. We've seen not just footage from residents along that city street in Minneapolis, but we've also seen footage taken by ICE officers on the scene of the event itself. Now, again, let me be very clear about something. I'm not trying to tarnish someone in death, but let's be clear about who Renee Good was. Yes, she was a mom, but she was also an activist. She, along with her spouse, wife, whatever you want to call it, were part of an anti-ICE group in Minneapolis whose explicit intent on a consistent basis was to go around harassing federal agents, monitoring them, videotaping them, and of course, trying to provide some sort of resources for illegals in the Minneapolis area. Of course, as we all know, the city of Minneapolis and of course the state of Minnesota has been under considerable scrutiny in recent weeks as we've learned of the excessive fraud committed by Somali illegals, especially in certain daycare centers. Not the luring centers, but the learning centers. But in any event, in recent weeks, aside from that, what have we seen ICE do in Minneapolis? Well, this is what the establishment media, both at the national level and even here in New Jersey, won't tell you. The last few weeks, ICE officers have rounded up more than 100 very dangerous criminal illegals. We're not talking about shoplifting, folks. We're not talking about like jaywalking or not paying your parking tickets. A simple Google search will tell you and show you that these are some dangerous men and women that were rounded up. Some have committed sexual assaults, burglaries, carjackings, endangering the welfare of minors. You name it, folks. Like dangerous people have been taken off the street in Minnesota. Now, as you know, I've been a staunch advocate of enforcing federal immigration law because what have we seen for the last 4 years? And before you start menstruating on me and say, there goes Fernando with his whataboutisms. No, it's not about whataboutisms. Folks, for the last 4 years, we had an open border under the previous administration. Now, is the border completely secure? It's a lot more secure than we saw the last 4 years. We saw tens of millions of illegals flooding into the country, specifically into blue states and blue cities, at the expense of taxpayers. Don't believe me? Again, a simple Google search will tell you what was going on in New York City, in Long Island, and other blue cities across the country. But let's get back to the tragedy in Minneapolis. Folks, again, we can look at the footage and let's be intellectually honest here. Let's call balls and strikes fairly here, folks, because that's what we do on this show. I can't speak for other people in New Jersey that do media or journalism. But on this show, we try to tell you the facts and let you decide for yourself. I don't know who thought it was a good idea to take your vehicle and pull it into the middle of the street to obstruct federal officers. But that seems to be, folks, the mindset that has become pervasive. And I don't want to say by just one political party, because there are some Democrats that are actually responsible that don't engage in this sort of partisan propaganda. But one side of the political aisle has felt it necessary to deputize residents across this country into believing and indoctrinating them into, again, subscribing to the philosophy that it's okay to obstruct federal officers from doing their jobs. Folks, we've seen it in New York City. We've seen it here in New Jersey. We've seen it in Minneapolis. We've seen it in other cities throughout this country. Now, as our parents used to tell us when we were younger, nothing good happens after 2 a.m. Well, folks, nothing good happens when you decide to F with law enforcement. Now, we're going to find out after an investigation is done into this tragedy, but we're seeing some footage that helps to, at least in my opinion, knock down some of the narratives that the left wing in this country have been conveying for some days now. Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again. There are plenty of demographics I don't like in our political system. But it's hard to argue, folks, that perhaps the most toxic demographic in our political system has to be the liberal white woman. And we see it all the time. Jumping in front of vehicles, filming law enforcement, being agitators, provoking confrontations, in some cases throwing objects at federal law enforcement. Who thought that was a good idea, folks? What that's telling me is that you had shitty parents because you were shitty children and you turned into shitty adults. Now, no one's advocating here for corporal punishment by parents. But we can kind of tell who didn't get disciplined and smacked around and who really were given participation trophies for their entire childhood and into adulthood. Who thinks it's a good idea to jump into the way of a vehicle operated by federal law enforcement? We've seen it all the time, folks. We've seen people right by Delaney Hall jumping into the trajectory of a vehicle as federal officers are coming in and bringing illegals there into detention centers. Which reminds me, of course, of U.S. Representative Monica MacGyver. You know, that big behemoth, right? I believe the 9th Congressional District or the 11th or the 10th. I'm not sure. I'll have to Google that. But folks, we've all seen the footage. And a shout out to U.S. Representative Rob Menendez here in the 8th Congressional District. I mean, again, not sure if he works on traps or his arms or chest. I'm not sure what he does day to day. Folks, I got to tell you, man, shout out to Rob Menendez with that very deceptive strength. Because if you watch the footage, I mean, folks, being able to hold back that behemoth, ooh, Rob, you got my respect, bro. Not easy to do that. You ever been around heavy women? It's kind of hard to, restrain them if they're acting out. And in her case, acting out all ratchet and ghetto, well, I mean, that shouldn't surprise you about people like Monica MacGyver and others that have felt the need to act inappropriately in front of law enforcement. Now, folks, we can have a debate and a conversation about whether or not you want federal immigration law enforced. I get it. It's an emotional issue. As a son of immigrants, I get it. It's something that's going to evoke a lot of conversation. It's going to evoke an enormous amount of debate. And we can sit here and talk about what the executive branch is responsible for. We can talk about what the legislative branch is responsible for. Maybe changing laws. And also how the executive branch enforces certain laws. Now, I'm not here to give you a civics lesson, folks. That's not my goal here today. But what I am here to tell you is that this is an issue that has become extremely polarizing. Now, I'm not surprised about what happened in Minneapolis because I was deep in my soul. I felt sooner or later, someone's going to provoke a confrontation, and sooner or later, this is tragically going to happen. And it did. And I don't take any joy or I don't relish in what happened. Folks, kids lost their mom. A spouse lost their partner. I get all that. It's unfortunate. It's tragic. That should not have happened. But sooner or later, folks, these confrontations that we've been seeing on YouTube, on Rumble, TikTok, Instagram, you name it, whatever social media platform you view on a consistent basis, these confrontations were getting worse and worse. You were seeing men and women standing in front of detention centers, throwing objects at federal officers, trying to obstruct federal officers. And we're seeing that now. Even just a couple of days ago, I saw residents in Minneapolis trying to put up barriers and getting sandbags and trying to put up a border wall around certain neighborhoods to make sure that ICE can't get in there. Isn't it interesting now how the left wing now suddenly believes in walls and preserving borders? Is that interesting? But also what's interesting too is miraculously the establishment media, liberal Hollywood, academia, suddenly now you care about white women. Wow, unbelievable. Did you care about white women when Laken Riley, who coincidentally, folks, just last week would have turned 24 years old? If you'll remember, the University of Georgia nursing student who was raped and violently murdered by an illegal in Georgia. Did you care about the Ukrainian immigrant on the light rail in Charlotte, murdered by a black defendant who, again, because of liberal judges in North Carolina, were not keeping men like that in jail? Did you care about the white woman who was set on fire by an illegal on a subway line in Brooklyn? Did you care about other white women that were assaulted by illegals in just the last year alone? But conveniently, the left and progressives and the same people that I talk about every week on this show, folks, especially here in Hudson County. And you saw it over the last weekend. The Democratic Socialists of New Jersey, the Socialism and Liberation Front, and all these left-wing organizations were there in front of City Hall in Jersey City on Grove Street, freezing their asses like retards. They should be home watching playoff football, which, by the way, great games over the weekend. And there was no shortage of virtue signaling there last weekend or throughout New Jersey. We saw it in towns like Somerville, Roxbury, New Brunswick, out in Philadelphia, out in LA, other parts of the country. I get it, folks. You want to object to the existence of ICE. Well, listen, elections have consequences. You want the laws changed, then you need to change the legislature at a federal level. Because Immigration and Customs Enforcement, otherwise known as ICE, was consolidated into one agency with the creation of the Department of Homeland Security in 2003, after the passage of the Patriot Act, due to the attacks on September 11, 2001, due to Islamic terrorists. And for decades now, ICE has been doing its job, removing illegals from our country. So whether it was Presidents George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, now Donald Trump once again, they've been removing illegals from this country with the usage of ICE. Now, if you want to have an argument about the tactics utilized by the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, well, we can have that conversation too. But folks, it's, again, ICE didn't bring chaos to our cities. Okay? There's already chaos in our cities, and ICE is just simply there to rescue us from it. Now, once again, folks, it's tragic what happened to Renee Good, but it was avoidable. And at some point, again, I don't have any kids that I know of, but at some point, don't parents who want to be activists have some sort of, or bear some responsibility here or accountability? Instead of being virtue signalers and going out there and, yes, sticking it to ICE and sticking it to Donald Trump because that's what you live for. Okay, cool. What do you think about your kids? Okay? That's something no one talks about. Or at least talks about it out loud. But it's tragic what happened last week, folks. And sooner or later, it was bound to happen. Who knows if it might happen again? But nothing good, folks, comes out of A, taking your vehicle and obstructing the path of federal agents on a city street, or trying to obstruct ICE officials, whether it's in New York City or anywhere else. Folks, that's not going to end well. I can tell you from a very young age, my parents were always like, listen, you get pulled over by a cop, you're Hispanic, you're brown, you don't exactly have the lightest complexion. Do yourself a favor. Roll down all your windows, put your hand on the steering wheel. Avoid all confrontation. And you'll get home alive. You'll get home without an incident. But folks, specifically liberal white women, feel it's their duty, feel that they've been deputized by this progressive movement to be as insufferable as possible. And you've seen it. Seen a bunch of ugly lesbians and everything else at all these rallies, trying to obstruct ICE and denounce ICE and using some language I wouldn't even repeat in front of children. Folks, you ever notice these rallies? You ever notice how hideous some of these women are? Folks, I wouldn't bang any of these women if my life depended on it. But that's the type that is attracting this demographic to these rallies. It's tragic, folks. It's gotten ugly. Not just the protesters, but the message has gotten ugly. Let's try to find some middle ground here. We want our cities safe. We want dangerous illegals removed. But by the same token, listen, should there be better training for ICE officers? Absolutely. As someone who worked in criminal justice for years, as someone who went through training himself, I get it. That's important. But let's have these conversations. Let's not just be emotional. Let's just not be the typical social justice clowns and woke fools. And again, the usual cat ladies and everything else. Let's come in the middle here. Let's have a conversation about better tactics, better messaging, and just a better policy. And I'm pretty sure we can come in the middle and agree at least on that. We'll see if that happens, folks, in 2026. But by the looks of it, it seems like the left is doubling down. But by the same token, it seems like patriots and those on the right aren't willing to put up with this bullshit any longer. We'll see who breaks. May not happen anytime soon. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. Now some local stories, folks, for your consideration. A shout out to Jeff Henning, one of the elder statesmen in Hudson County media, and his work with Hudson TV for his reporting on this story. And as a kid raised in West New York, New Jersey, this kind of, tugged at my heart a little bit, as now we are seeing renovations beginning for a new West New York Municipal Library. Now, the current library, which is located on 60th Street, directly across from Town Hall, is over 100 years old, and by the end of 2026, the town will have a new public library to replace it. Now, just last week, Mayor Albio Series, the Board of Commissioners, and members of the local Library Board of Trustees had a ceremonial groundbreaking inside the new location, the former Modell's Sporting Goods store, which is located on Bergen Line Avenue on the corner of 57th Street. Now, the two-story building will house a state-of-the-art library featuring more space than the current location. It will also be handicap accessible and will have parking in the rear parking deck that's already present there. Now, the estimated cost of the demolition is $1.1 million, with approximately $7 to $8 million for the renovation work. Coincidentally, the state of New Jersey is also contributing some $6 million towards the project. Now, once the library is completed later this year, the plan is for the police department to move into the current location site. Well, folks, as someone who grew up in West New York, I can tell you a lot of great afternoons were spent at the West New York Library. And I'm pretty much dating myself now when I say this, but folks, long before, high-speed internet or anything else, you'd go to the West New York Library to read the newspaper, to read periodicals, to do homework, to meet friends, maybe rent some videos. But it was one of the better public libraries anywhere in Hudson County. So I'm glad to see some long overdue renovations. Now listen, I miss Modell's like anybody else. As a sports fan, as someone who's played competitive sports in his day, whether it's softball or anything else, folks, trust me, you all enjoyed going to Modell's, buying that new equipment, a brand new pair of cleats and spikes, a new softball glove, and how great and exciting it was to break that in, or a new aluminum bat, or just athletic wear, if you're looking to buy a jersey for your team. Folks, Modell's was quite the franchise. And trust me, a lot of us were pretty heartbroken when it closed down due to filing for bankruptcy. But I couldn't think of a better location and a better substitute for that great iconic institution that was known as Modell's than the new West New York Public Library. So once again, a shout out to Mayor Albio Series and the Board of Commissioners, certainly the Township Manager, Jonathan Castañeda, and of course, State Senator Brian Stack in the 33rd Legislative District, which no doubt helped secure more funding from Trenton, as West New York is one of his municipalities that he oversees as a state senator, once again, in the 33rd Legislative District. We'll keep you posted, folks, about what amenities and what innovative things will come from the new West New York Public Library. But to the old one, I say thank you for a lot of great memories and certainly a great location we can all look back on. A thank you to HUD Post and their editor, James De Los Santos, for his reporting on this story, as a federal judge last week denied U.S. Representative Monica MacGyver from the 10th Congressional District a motion to dismiss count 2 of an indictment related to her May 2025 oversight visit to Delaney Hall in Newark at that ICE detention center. Now, MacGyver, whose district includes parts of Jersey City, argued that the charge should be dropped under the protections of legislative immunity. Bullshit, because she wasn't there under any legislative oversight. She was just there to cause trouble and be ratchet and be ghetto, but that's who Monica MacGyver is. The court, however, found that the doctrine did not apply in this case. I mean, listen, folks, I'm not a lawyer. I'm never going to claim to be one, but it doesn't take a lottery to know what the eyes tell you. In a statement, MacGyver says she was disappointed by the ruling and reiterated the necessity of in-person oversight at detention centers. Quote, legislative oversight of an ICE detention facility like Delaney Hall can't be undone from behind a desk. It's my responsibility to visit it, inspect it, and hold those running it accountable for any abuses. She also added, quote, I'm disappointed by today's ruling and remains very concerned about the Trump administration's efforts to criminalize legislative oversight and operate in the shadows. No, folks, that's not the case. What Monica MacGyver wants to do is be theatrical, put on a show, and be hysterical, like a lot of women, let's be honest. But in this case, folks, just like the videotape will tell you in other instances, I mean, folks, there's nothing ambiguous here. You saw how Monica MacGyver conducted herself. It wasn't as a member of the House of Representatives. She wasn't acting as a distinguished member of Congress. She was acting all ratchet. But that's who Monica MacGyver is. She's ratchet. She's ghetto. We've come to know that already. And as I said before, shout out to U.S. Representative Rob Menendez from the 8th Congressional District with very deceptive strength, because if you see him trying to restrain Monica MacGyver, folks, that's no easy task. Let me tell you something. That's a big woman. And you're trying to hold her back when she's getting all ratchet and ghetto and being like Jasmine Crockett and, screaming vulgarities and, in that high-pitched voice. Folks, again, shout out to Rob Menendez. That's no easy task to try to hold that behemoth back. But folks, this is the level of entitlement that many progressives and many of those on the left seem to operate with. It's sort of like that Cardi B mentality. Just because I scream the loudest, oh, you got to listen to me. No, folks, just because you scream the loudest doesn't mean you're right. It doesn't mean you should be listened to. But ratchet members of Congress like Monica MacGyver, Jasmine Crockett, and others seem to operate with this Cardi B mentality. I mean, go figure. But again, what's interesting is MacGyver returned to Delaney Hall just last month for the first time since charges were filed, following the reported death of a detainee. Now, according to her office, the visit was part of her ongoing oversight responsibility. This work is Congress's job, she said. It's not ambiguous and it shouldn't be up for debate. I will keep staying up to protect our community. Well, I mean, folks, let's be honest about what Monica MacGyver is. She's a self-serving member of the House of Representatives from the Democrat Party who feels that if she can act ratchet, so can you. Her actions and those by some in her party and by many on the left, especially in the progressive community, have felt that, hey, it's enabled people to feel that they're deputized, to go and act inappropriately, to go scream at federal agents, and in some cases, assault them. That's what Monica MacGyver did. Now, I get it. I mean, a woman of her size, if she sneezes, she's going to already assault you. I mean, it doesn't take much for a woman of her size. But it's not even that, folks. And I'm not even being cute about it. You can watch the video. You don't go up to a federal officer and do what she did. If you or I did that, trust me, we'd be in jail. Okay? We'd be in jail for assaulting a federal officer. And folks, and that's not like some little misdemeanor. Folks, that's a felony. That's serious shit. But don't tell that to Monica MacGyver. She's too busy thinking about what to order next on Uber Eats in her office to think about anything rationally or to have some decorum or even act like a lady. That's a little bit too much above her pay grade. But what else is new with Monica MacGyver? Lastly, folks, and once again, thank you to James De Los Santos, the editor-in-chief at HuffPost, for this tragic reporting here. And for anyone that ever enjoyed nightlife in Hoboken, especially during Sunday Funday of the NFL seasons, well, folks, after 15 years, Wicked Wolf has closed its doors. Apparently, the ownership is planning a new waterfront concept. Now, Wicked Wolf Tavern, again, a long-standing bar and restaurant on Hoboken's waterfront, right along Sinatra Drive, closed after 15 years of operation. Its final date of operation was Sunday, January 4th, coincidentally, the last season of, obviously, the NFL. And certainly with Week 18 coming and going, fans were treated to one final Sunday Funday on the Hoboken waterfront at Wicked Wolf. Now, the closure follows the expiration of Wicked Wolf's lease. Now, owner Sean Sullivan confirmed that the decision came after the parties were unable to reach an agreement on a rent increase. Sullivan also told various outlets that his restaurant group is planning a new waterfront concept at a different location. As y'all remember, originally opened in 2010, Wicked Wolf became known for its large number of TVs, tavern-style menu, and its role as a social hub for Hoboken residents. Now, the business expanded in 2022 with the launch of the Lola, a separate restaurant and cocktail bar located nearby on Sinatra Drive. Well, folks, for anybody that enjoyed Leprechaun during St. Patrick's Day weekend or SantaCon during the holiday season, or even just going out for Sunday Funday during the NFL, folks, there was never a shortage of hot chicks around. There was never a shortage of good liquor to consume and good times with good friends. I can tell you, great memories there all throughout the years. It's interesting how, whether it's gentrification, rent increases, affordability, you name it, folks, Hoboken, once again, is losing another iconic institution, and that's Wicked Wolf. And for a lot of Sunday Fundays, for a lot of us here, folks, trust me, it was something to remember. And thankfully, well, some videos and photos that probably we have in our storage, we probably never want to see the light of day. But again, Wicked Wolf was enjoyable and exciting. And quite frankly, folks, it was something to always look forward to every single weekend in the Mile Square City. And that's our show for this week. Once again, folks, to check out all the great content brought to you by the leader in independent media here in Hudson County, the Hudson Media Group. Check them out on Facebook, of course. Make sure you follow them on Instagram and X. And don't forget to subscribe to their great content on YouTube. Whether it's Talking Politics with Fernando Uribe, Hudson County View Live on Wednesdays with John R. Highness from the Hudson County View, Stick at Night with Hudson County Commissioner Anthony Romano, or of course, all the great men and women from North Bergen High School, led by Greta Hernandez. We're bringing you great content, folks, every single week here, courtesy of the Hudson Media Group. I can't say enough what a privilege it is to work with the best staff I've ever worked with here in the studio. And of course, many thanks to the president and CEO of the Hudson Media Group, Patrick O'Malia. Well, again, I'm very grateful for his belief in my abilities as Talking Politics approaches 7 years here with HMG. Always remember, folks, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Talking Politics here with the Hudson Media Group. Yes, I am the generational talent in Garden State Media and your leader for trustworthy journalism, folks. Always remember, you can rely on Talking Politics right here with Fernando Uribe. Have a great rest of your week, folks. Please party responsibly, and we'll see you next time here on Talking Politics.